Hello, you are listening to the Gamer Librarian Podcast, the best podcast you can find on this side of the multiverse. I am your host, Adrian, and today I'll be talking about the SAG-AFTRA AI strikes and more. Afterwards, be sure to subscribe to be notified when future episodes are released, and show your support by liking and leaving a comment. Thank you for joining. We have made it to another Friday, and I am just happy to have the week over and start the weekend. What plans does everyone have for this weekend? You guys playing games, reading any comics or manga? I've been trying a lot harder to spend time outside during the summer, despite my urge to play video games indoors. Now, I'll be going to a Hozier concert this weekend, first time seeing him live, and my girlfriend has me hooked on his music already. We're hoping he plays Work Song and In a Week specifically. That would be really nice to see. This would be our second concert together after trying for years to go to some. I go to tons of concerts when I can, usually metal and hardcore shows like Lorna Shore and Chelsea Grin, stuff like that. There are still some concerts I'd like to go before the year is out, but my schedule is filling up quickly. Anyone with a full-time job probably can sympathize, but I am trying to plan out my PTO for the rest of the year. We got birthdays and camping trips coming up, which is exciting, but I'm also in need of some dental work soon. So this year is going swimmingly for me so far. But besides that, there is something worth looking forward to that I may need to use PTO for, and that is having our first guest on the podcast. Now, I don't want to say who it is yet until it happens, but there is a clue in the episode if you can find it. I'm grateful and excited for their appearance on the show, and I'm doing my best to have a good list of questions that can be entertaining. I'm also a bit nervous as I've never gotten to interact with someone on such an interesting pedigree as this guest. To that regard, look for our first guest appearance episode to release in September. If you think you might know who it is, leave a comment with your guess. I think we should get into this week's episode now because there are quite a few things I wanted to discuss. First, why don't we talk about a serious issue inside not just video gaming, but the tech and entertainment industry as a whole. I'll have the article in the description, but I saw this article on the SAG-AFTRA Video Game Union going on strike in protest against secret policies involving AI that affect more than just game developers. Now, voice actors and motion capture actors are incredibly influential in the gaming space. The various animations and voices we have in gaming are made because of these actors. Hell, we have dogs being motion captures actors for video games now. The article goes into detail on how they are avoiding having meaningful conversations on the subject of AI and workers in the video game space. Most of these talks seem to be stalled on the topic of defining who a performer is and who is protected under the Interactive Media Agreement, which I believe encompasses things very much so besides just gaming. I think it's also like mobile games and then all kinds of stuff like interactive like is a big thing of it. The committee of SAG-AFTRA even states that their conversations and negotiations for rights have been delayed, vague, and riddled with so many legal loopholes that we're left practically no protection for our future. I wanted to bring this up because I think not just the video game industry, but the tech, media, and entertainment industries will also be affected by this. And if I have to be honest, our civilization as a whole is on a cusp of great change because of AI. We are talking about hundreds of thousands of jobs that range from blue collar to white collar that will be phased out because of AI. Now, I think it's guaranteed that companies will start implementing AI more and more as the AI products and services get better and better. And that means that people's jobs will become obsolete more and more. I can give an example. My current job is brain dead easy. I know an AI could do it more efficiently than me. That's why I started this podcast on top of applying anywhere I can so I could secure my future. This change, while I think is inevitable for the world, I do think that it is a long-term positive outcome for gaming as a whole. People losing jobs is not a good thing, but I hope those affected, will be able to move forward easily from this transition. Companies this year alone have already established record number layoffs in the gaming space. Those are large companies, and in my opinion, their livelihood and how they make their money is up to them. I still firmly believe that human created ideas and products are superior to AI generated content. The time and effort someone puts into a craft is priceless. We already have companies using AI generated art in their products, and soon there will be AI created stories, worlds, and characters. This is not all bad. I would actually love to see a small team of developers use AI tools to assist them in making video games. The key word is tools. Developers who use AI as a means to make longer, more complicated tasks easier and more efficient. I believe we have AI working on coding and debugging for video games now, which is great. However, I still believe that human quality assurance and testing is required and should be mandatory in all workspace that use AI tools. I hope that in the wake of these strikes and layoffs, we see some genuine change in the gaming space, not just from developers and publishers, but I think the general public has a long way to go before completely accepting AI into their lives outside of on your phone when searching for results. I am very intrigued on how AI is used in gaming and everyday life, so you can expect me to follow more on this topic as the world changes day by day. If AI concerns you, voice your comments down below and let me know what you think on AI in video games and as a whole. Now, that's a whole big thing that am not really uh, qualified to talk about, I would say. I'm not part of gaming tech. I don't know anything about how coding and AI works with video games and how they're truly implemented. But I can think of broad scope, like ideas of how it affects, people. You need people for a job, and usually it's people making these ideas, creating these characters in game. And the less of them you have, the less a company's got to pay for people. And then you have all this other kind of hoopla that goes into that. And I think that, at the very least, people should be, you know, very much expecting change to happen. So if you think your job might be in jeopardy or some kind of way, I think people need to be smart about how they're approaching AI in the future. That's all I really wanted to say, at least on that. So I hope that anybody gets to keep their job and just have a good time making games. And that's all I really want, is people to have fun making games and make it, pretty easy for everybody. And AI is going to make that easier, but it's just scary on how it's going to really change and affect the world as a whole. So besides that, we're going to get into a whole lot of gaming news. Now, we had Evo for 2024 this year, and I believe it's over. I haven't really kept up with a whole bunch of it, but Evo, now it seems like in the past, Evo was a pretty not as mainstream thing that, as far as I know, wasn't really like talked about or like featured on news sites or all that much. And I think sometimes you got like announcements for characters and all kinds of stuff around fighting games and video games usually for Evos. But now, ever since like maybe before 2020, and ever since then, they've been a little rocky with doing their schedules for Evo. And we now have, real bolster for roster attendance going, like attendees going for these conventions. And I know that, Street Fighter and Tekken had like record numbers, and even some smaller games got even bigger numbers versus their last year's, which is great. And that means that there's more eyes watching these events, more players, more people watching and attending, and that means that advertisers are going to be putting out, more content, which I think is great. There should definitely be a good open dialogue, a positive open dialogue between, people who run these smaller events and then people who own the titles. I think that there needs to be a positive connection there, and I think that, seeing how games like Smash Bros. And Nintendo and then Marvel vs. Capcom in the past have been represented in their fighting game community space with all these tournaments. So positively, we get some really cool things like Lucy being a cyberpunk announcement for the game Guilty Gear Strive, which is great if you've watched the anime show Cyberpunk on Netflix, which is really good in my opinion. So that's a banger. That's an absolute banger. And this is a great excuse for me now to go and catch up on all the DLC characters. So that's amazing that they're putting her in the game. And of course, Heihachi's coming back in Tekken 8. That was a no-brainer, absolutely. So that was really cool to see, and I just love to see that, And I'm super hoping for Evos in the future and a future announcement, all this kind of stuff. And obviously, congratulations to the Evo winners and participants. I wish I had your names like right in front of me, but I can understand the kind of degree of, stress and hard work it takes to even get to that level. So like, I just want to acknowledge that as like somebody who's a newer fan to fighting games as a whole, because I think that's one of the coolest things out there. And that's just it for like, fighting games and stuff, like general actual news that I wanted to talk about. And yeah, that's basically it. So let me take some time to talk about sponsor Dubby. Dubby is a clean energy drink that is made to give you focus with no crash, jitters, or angst like other energy drinks. We also have no maltodextrin filters and don't use artificial dyes. Dubby contains vitamins, amino acids, a nootropic, and 150 milligrams of caffeine. If you use coupon code Gamer Librarian, that's one word, Gamer Librarian, at checkout, you will get 10% off any order of products from drink powders, apparel, portable bottles, stickers, and bags. Click the link and get 10% off. Dubby is an energy drink that is produced in FDA registered and inspected facilities in the US. And yeah, thank you, Dubby. That was pretty cool. We've had a sponsor for a few episodes now, and it's just kind of nice to be able to provide something outside of like just me listening to a voice or like you listening to my voice. You know what I mean? So for this week, I have continuing my playthrough of Persona 3 Reloaded. Now, I'm loving this game so far. It is one of the funnest RPGs that I've had the pleasure of playing. Just like in Persona 5, it's cool to choose when and how you want to interact with some of the cooler characters in the game, the side NPCs, the social links, which I think is really fun. And, upgrading them influences the actual combat of the game. Your personas, your Pokemon kind of demon, what do they call it in JoJo? They call them stands. They're basically just like stands. And you just, they get more XP and they get stronger if you have stronger friend connections. So it's definitely worthwhile to check out. I love the fat dude. His little story is so far pretty good. And right now for the party, we just got Aegis, the little robot girl, and Koromaru, the robot dog. I guess he's a robot. I believe he's a robot. I don't think he's like a real person. I haven't finished the story yet. That's just my guess for what he is. It just seems odd. I don't know, but he kind of feels like he's probably another robot. And, you know, I'm intrigued to see where this game goes because it's super intriguing now. There's a lot of mystery surrounding why the palace or the terminus, I guess it's called, is there. And there's these three new villains that are super vague, although I think one of them is like a good guy in disguise that we've seen. I think that was also like a plot device in Persona 3. These games are so long with so many characters, it's very hard to keep track of them all. But by just playing it, when I can, as an RPG is super fun. We're about halfway through the game, I believe. We're still on the sixth, like big shadow guy, and we're just still getting to like I think we're on levels 115 of the palace dungeon right now, like the stairs, which is pretty cool. I am wondering how they're going to implement the DLC. I'm hoping it's just like a way to play the game again instead of like having to just start at the DLC. Because honestly, I'm looking forward to doing another playthrough of this game because then I could just really blast through the content that I really know, just like I did in Persona 5 when Persona 5 Royale came out. That was really great. I do kind of like that. I did pay for the DLC, so I'm hoping that expansion comes out soon. As far as I can tell, it's not really like out yet. And that's, Persona 3 has been really fun so far. Persona 3 Reload, if you haven't gotten it yet, I think you should check it out if you're a big fan of RPGs, longer form RPGs. I'm only 60 hours in already, which is pretty long. Persona 5 first playthrough took me around maybe 150 hours, and then Royale was like 210, I think. I could be completely wrong. I have to check my PS4 like time stats when I get a chance, but I did really enjoy those games, and playing Persona 3 has been a great time. I'm actually probably gearing towards playing Persona 4 once we get caught up on specifically Dragon Age and Gears of War, because Persona is a really easy game I can play while I'm working. It's not like a multiplayer game or like Final Fantasy or something that's like, requires two hands on a controller or keyboard at all times. I can literally just press X whenever I want to, and the dialogue can just, automatically go, and they'll just talk to me half the time. We'll just hit X again, repeat, and then RPG turn-based stuff is pretty easy. That's great. So Persona 4 is definitely on the back burner coming up soon. And I already did mention it, but yes, we will be playing through the Dragon Age games. Dragon Age Origins will be coming up probably next episode once I figure out a way to play it properly. Now, I've had it on disc for a long time. I have the DLC on disc for Dragon Age Origins and 2. Now, through Game Pass, I think I could probably play them pretty easily, although I don't really want to pay for Game Pass. And there's no sale going on for any of the Dragon Age games, which is pretty much a bummer. So until I figure out how to properly play that, I'll figure it out sometime this weekend how I really want to pay to play these games again, which I think, I'm not a stickler for that because yeah, I can just get my Xbox One X and plug in the DLC discs and download them properly, but like I don't really want that. I have the Xbox Series S and it's the digital version obviously, so like I can't use the discs, which isn't awful for me, but it's definitely like now I got to get this console out and plug it in, use it, and the update's probably going to be, pretty long, and that's not a super big issue. That's just like a whole day. That's just probably Sunday for me. But there's definitely like an issue when you're still having people like try to find a good balance between physical media and then being able to not just play your games digitally, but now we having games being streamed and all that kind of stuff. And it's definitely like a weird time. And I was kind of hoping for around this time before Veilguard was announced that they would do at least a Dragon Age 1 and 2 like remaster port because like that just makes total sense for anybody with a brain that you would remaster these games like they've been doing for so long. They remaster all their games and then just put them in an easy bundle. You don't got to worry about like those choice transfers or any stupid stuff like that. And then you can just play it digitally or on a disc if they're going to sell it that way. And then bada bing, bada boom. Because Inquisition is 10 years old, so that almost qualifies for like a remaster. Definitely not a remake in my opinion, but certainly a remaster. The textures and the graphics could certainly be like modernized in a way, and I think that's just about it. It doesn't really need it much else. But Dragon Age Origins and 2 specifically, of course, they could definitely use quality of life and definitely higher texture res stuff. And that's just, my brain just went like, why aren't they showing off an Origins 1 and 2 like bundle remaster or something? But, it's not that big a deal. So for Dragon Age Origins, we're going to be trying to get going through a rogue playthrough the first time. Never done a rogue playthrough in any Dragon Age game, and we're going to specifically try and get Logain as a party member because I've been reading Dragon Age: The Calling, and that by David Gator, and that has been a fantastic book, truly fun, and I just love the Grey Wardens versus the Darkspawn stuff. Like I'm a big sucker for that, so that's pretty cool. And you know, this book surprised me in so many ways because I was expecting to have a little bit more like context into some of the character relationships, and I was kind of hoping that we would get that, but you don't really. And I won't really spoil it now. You could go and talk, like read the last episodes, but specifically here, I won't talk about the spoilers because I think that's kind of part of the story for at least this specific like piece of media. But for any of the other Dragon Age stuff, I'll certainly spoil, but I'll try not to spoil the calling to my best degree. But you do find like some origins to some playable characters in Origins, which is really cool. And then there's like even reference to other characters who become like leaders of Grey Wardens and stuff, which is really fun. And it's just cool to see like the Grey Wardens fight the Darkspawn and find stuff between them. And there's a villain in this book. I guess he's the villain of the book, but he's featured in the DLC as well for Dragon Age Origins Awakening. So that's pretty cool. And I was hoping that we would get context for a character like um, motivation, I would say, like a character motivation, because you don't really necessarily understand why he does it in the game or why he makes a certain decision in the game. And then even by the end of the game, it's kind of really not really elaborated on. And I was hoping that the calling would, alleviate to those motives. But for the first book that was The Stolen Throne, and then this book, the sequel, The Calling, you don't really get that. You definitely get a good idea of the relationship that I think is really cool. They're buddy buddy and they're friends, and then like there's a weird prophecy that's about it between like a dragon lady. He's also featured in Dragon Age Origins, so like obviously you can go feature and talk about uh or I guess look up any of these characters for the game if you haven't played them. But I'm trying hard not to give specific spoilers for the books at this point, because I think you guys should go read it. If you haven't played Dragon Age Origins, but you are a reader and you can read and you enjoy reading, certainly maybe give these two books a shot because by the time this book ends, you will have a good enough idea of like what the state of the world is when this blight comes, which is like the evil returning, that kind of stuff. When this blight comes for Origins, you have an understanding of the kind of context the world is in to a degree. I think that's really cool. I never read these books before playing these games. This is my first time reading these two specifically, and it was really cool having that context, in my opinion. So yeah, I didn't really get that, context really elaborated on or established so I can understand it correctly. Maybe I missed it in Dragon Age Origins and I'm just missing it now, but I don't really know the motive between one character's actions, considering the lore and relationship established from the Stolen Throne and this book to a degree. There's just this prophecy that just says this happens, and that's just relatively what it is. So that's just maybe BioWare kind of making the continuity work to a degree and all that kind of stuff. But they're not afraid to change that already. We've seen that with characters, so I'm not really going to nitpick on that. But I was just hoping for that, you know. I can understand like these books are made to a degree after this finished project comes out, and I've always been understanding like when a game first starts and like first comes out and is launched, they almost never anticipate to become a sequel. You know, that was like basically how Mass Effect works. That was how Gears of War worked, and that's how almost every first time game works. You never anticipate a sequel, so you don't plan on it. And you know, games where like your choices matter and are influential to the next game afterwards. You know, BioWare is the game for that. There's obviously games that have kind of tried to do that, but in my opinion, it's always been BioWare. Star Wars, Knights of the Republic, Mass Effect, and Dragon Age. Like those are the three games that have typically had that. They don't. Now, Star Wars doesn't really have transferable choices from what I remember, but it's still that same idea. And, you know, I just like BioWare. I don't want to see them, you know, be in hot water for having a bad title. But I'm also going to try and celebrate Dragon Age for what it is by the time Veilguard comes out because I think that it's just fun. And Dragon Age is like a great world, a wonderful place to like play and like role play for yourself in like some regards. And I think this is fun. There's really fun RPGs. So yeah, Dragon Age: The Calling by David Gator was an awesome read. Definitely one of my favorite video game books of all time. And yeah, that's technically just about it for the main stuff that I wanted to talk about. I have mentioned that the episode that I'll be doing more with Gears of War. I do plan on reading all the books and playing the games in anticipation for Gears of War E-Day. And I've already kind of gotten a head start because I went to the beach last weekend, this weekend that happened, and I usually bring a book with me. And if you saw the post, then you know that I brought Gears of War: The Slab by Karen Travis. Now, this is not the first book in the series. It's technically the last novel of hers in the Gears of War series. It's like the fifth one. And I've read all of them. I read all these books. And I chose The Slab just because it was the one on the shelf, and I think it offers really great context for a lot of characters. You know, for anybody who hasn't played Gears of War, you know, this is, I'm just going to really difficult to not have spoilers here, but by the time the slab takes place, um, you know, the Locusts are pretty much already here. They're already pretty deep into E-Day. That E-Day has been like 10 years, 11 years. So it's no secret that Marcus gets put into prison for dereliction of duty. And you see that all play out. That's very much in the background of the Gears of War game franchise. You don't get any kind of background like storylines or flashbacks or anything involving anything before E-Day. You almost never get that. Like Dom's wife is very much the way it is. You don't get context and all that kind of stuff. So you've always been under the impression that, you know, Marcus was always just this guy who was in prison and he gets out and now he's just a soldier again. But there's so much character dynamic that is in like the background at that point that is like maybe like obviously they didn't plan on it. I said it before, like video games, they don't plan on sequels. So I imagine they didn't super plan on having a book series, but they have that fleshed out, these storylines fleshed out between not just Marcus and his friends, but the families, characters who are before like E-Day and all that stuff. I think that's awesome. The slab is also like the name of a prison, so Marcus gets put into a prison for dereliction of duty, and then the book is covers his life in prison as well as some other stuff in the background regarding like his father. I won't really get into super specifics on that because that is a massive spoiler considering where you are in terms of the Gears franchise. So we're not really going to talk about that in entirety. But I'm a big fan of Karen Travis and her books, and Gears of War has always been a big part of my life, like my gaming life. It was one of the first games that got me to get an Xbox. It was that. It was like Gears of War and Dead Rising and Left 4 Dead. Like those three games were like the games that I got first when I got the Xbox. And then it was like the bundle for BioShock and the Elder Scrolls 4. So like those were my five first Xbox 360 games, and those will forever be a part of my life entirety. So Gears of War is something that I'm extremely looking forward to. Gears of War E-Day. There's so much cool context and lore stuff they can add from this era, like the books and the comics that they can put into E-Day, and I'm super excited. It's one of my favorite games. Not even just single player. I love the multiplayer for it. I love it more than Halo, Call of Duty, anything. I think the cover system, the picking up weapons off the map, and the like the taunts and the kills that you get on the characters, all that stuff in Gears of War is 10 out of 10. And I want Horde mode to come back. Gears of War E-Day goes back to Locust gameplay. So we're probably going to have, classic horde mode, classic gameplay and monsters. Hopefully they don't forget about the Lambent because in my opinion that is the my favorite thing that come out of Gears 3. Not a big spoiler, but the Lambent are a big part of the lore and they're very much featured early on in all the media, like the books and stuff. So they're talked about. Love them. Gears of War has one of the funnest horde modes you could ever play, in my opinion. So I'm very much excited to go back and do all three games, or I'm sorry, all five games. Wow, I just forgot about four or five, and Judgment. I forgot about. So like we got six games to go through. Maybe Gears Tactics if we have time. I never finished that fully. I would like to, but that game's a little just a little longer form, and I've never gotten full time to go through it. And hopefully in the future I can have that kind of time. And that's, for Gears of War, that's pretty much it. Definitely look forward to me talking about Gears of War, the slab, specifically next week around the same time with like Dragon Age and all this other kind of stuff. And what else has happened in the week? So, in the mail, I got the tabletop RPG for Batman Gotham City Chronicles. And I wanted to talk about this a little more length at some point because I'm a big fan of tabletop RPGs. I don't get to talk about them very much here on the podcast because I would like at some point to start playing them with fans and friends and putting that on YouTube. But right now, time is not my friend. So I get to talk about it for right now and just say that what came in the mail is fantastic. You get three large, huge books for this collection. You get the like the Game Master's Guide, you get a guide to Gotham, and then you get like an adventure guide, which is really great. So you get to play as all kinds of characters inspired by the citizens and people who live in Gotham, and then you get to be like a superhero or a supervillain of your choosing. And you even get all like I got the Game Master bundle, whatever. It got me all three books, and it got me these really great laminated maps that look like very similar like Gears of War style maps in some regard, but they're like game maps. You could just put your little standees on. We got little villain standees as well. I got like a Joker coin. I'm sorry, it's a Two-Face coin, and yeah, it was a really great set seeing this come in the mail, and it got some dice that are really cool. They're like black and yellow, and I would like to show it off at some point, maybe even get a Batman game going in the future. But I just want to talk about that because I want to have more RPG stuff here on the show eventually, and hopefully Batman could be one of the games featured coming up in the future. And so, to wrap it up, we do have the new manga chapters that came out this week. One Piece 1121, 1121. Next chapter will be out in 9 days, but we now have what I consider to be the roster of the most important characters in the show so far. At the very end, they feature a plethora of characters, about maybe I think it's 12, and you get the four emperors, the four current ones, is like Luffy, Blackbeard, and Roger and the Crocodile. I think they're the four emperors, and then you get like Hawkeye. You don't get Hawkeye Mihawk, but you get like some sword dude who I'm very unsure what it was. I thought it was Hawkeye at first. You also get Shanks and some other characters. I think that's important because we're at a point in One Piece where players like the characters are now going to be going to go get items. Like this is like the final roster of people going to get the One Piece. I think that the first person to get the One Piece, I think is gonna be Blackbeard, in my opinion, and maybe like Blackbeard and Shanks will fight over it and that kind of thing. And I think Luffy and Shanks will fight over it. That's what I think. I think Luffy and Shanks are going to fight over the One Piece by the end of by the end of the entire manga at some point. That's just my guess. And I think the One Piece crew, the Straw Hat Pirates, they're going to specifically be going for the Poneglyphs weapons. If you're caught up on on the manga and then One Piece, you'll know what that is. But there's like full weapons, and I think they're going to be looking for that first, in my belief. So stick around for more One Piece content because I love covering this. It's one of my favorite mangas. And we also have the end for the My Hero Academia manga coming up. They have chapter 428, and that was pretty cool. Very much Uraraka tease for next chapter where she's dealing with grief and losing a villain, like not being able to save a villain or prevent them from destructing themselves, destroying themselves. And I think that's a very cool kind of character idea, a character thing like for them to deal with because you don't see that in this show particularly. Like Deku usually lets those characters live or they just end up surviving. But especially with like Uraraka, you almost never get anything with them. And then this is a great way to tease a positive ending for Deku and her coming into like their new series or whatever they're going to do in the future. So I'm super excited to see what's going to happen with that. And we also had Wild Strawberry chapters 26 and 27, and the next chapter sadly comes out in 13 days, which is terrible. But this test is wild because you find out that there's certainly a lot more going on in the background, where now it seems very clear that the Special Forces Task Force knows a lot more about the Jinka users, and they seem to be implementing them specifically in these tests, which is crazy. So I think that's wild. We got some really cool art out of these two chapters, and I also love talking about this manga, and I want to see where this one ends. 'Cause I want to see all the cool flower monsters and large panel stuff that they have, especially an anime adaptation. So I'm excited to talk about that coming in the future. And manga's been a really big part of my life as well. I'm super looking forward to specific like how My Hero ends, and then One Piece. I think the One Piece ending is going to be huge for the entire anime scape. I think anime is going to change forever if when One Piece has like an ending. And that's, really all I really want to talk about. We got through everything, and I just really hope that you guys, stay safe out there, spend this time out in the sun, wear sunscreen, be outside. That's really all I want you guys to do. And this has been episode 43 of the Gamer Librarian podcast. Be sure to subscribe for updates on future episode releases. Leave a like and comment on what games or books I should talk about in the future. Thank you, and see you next time.